All right. Got to be running around trying to get things ready, man. I'm like sweating over here.
Oh, you're good. No rush.
All right. So I think everything's good, man. We got the logo going on.
I appreciate that. That's a nice little plug. Thanks.
Some headphones on. They should be on. Should be working.
You don't have left, right specific. They're just...
No, they are. The one with the red is the right side.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter for this thing, but you should be able to hear something through there.
Oh yeah, we're good.
All right.
We're good. I'm gonna move that just a little bit. Boom.
Yeah. Move that thing wherever you want it. You know how it is.
Yep.
You know, about a fist from your mouth or whatever.
Yep. I do a good job of projecting anyway, so we'll be all right.
Yeah, I figured you had a good voice for it, so it wasn't going to be a big deal. So we're rolling, Dale. We finally did it. We got the camera going.
Appreciate
Audacity is running. Last night I had a problem with Audacity. I don't know if you listened to my post that I made last night. I did a video.
I saw you put an Instagram post up that said the botched episode.
Right.
I saw it this morning in my Instagram peruse while I was brushing my teeth, and then I was like, oh, I'll have to check it out later, and then just the day got away from me.
Yeah, I was trying to do a post for my Tuesday because I try and release something every Tuesday and Friday, and I got up here and I was all excited and I had some notes and I was going to do a show. I had your logo up, kind of promoting this thing that we're doing today. And I started my Audacity, my recording, through the mics and stuff, through the board. I started the camera, had it up on the end of the table here. And I got about 12 minutes in and I had done some stuff with a web browser on the Chrome or whatever. And I went back to look at my Audacity and see how much time had gone by so far.
Right.
And it was stopped at like 56 seconds. And I'm like, what the hell?
I've been there.
What happened? Yeah, somehow I paused my audio. So all I had was the camera stuff going on. So I was hoping that my voice had at least projected to the camera enough to where I could post something where you could hear it. You know. And I was just going to continue. I was just going to hit record and just start recording the audio again. And I said, you know what? It's after midnight. Screw it. I'm just going to scrap it. So I did like a 12-minute episode last night.
I've been there.
Just from the camera.
I've been there. I've actually recorded. I've gone through most of a fight card before.
Right.
Doing picks and everything, and realized that I had my microphone muted because I have a Yeti mic, so you got to turn it on from the bottom.
Right. I've done the same thing here before.
So I literally spoke, and I didn't realize that, I guess you would say the pitch that Audacity was picking up was from the internal mic, not from my Yeti mic.
Yeah.
So I recorded this entire thing, and then I go to listen to it and edit it before I put it out, and it sounds like somebody talking in a tin can. I'm like,
right. So you're just recording from your laptop or whatever.
Yeah, which is sitting on my desk, so the sound's going down, reverbing off the desk into the mic. It just is a nightmare. But
I've done an episode like that before, though. I said, you know what? Let me take off all these fancy mics and all this stuff that I got, and let's just record through my Surface Pro. And it actually wasn't a bad deal. I didn't think it was...
The first 3 episodes of our show ever are using the Voice Memo app on the iPhone while I was sitting in my work truck.
Right.
Like, just... I downloaded... I was using a different software at the time, and it allowed me to just record right to the software, and it would publish it. So I was just like...
So like Stitcher or something? Or?
Yeah, it was Anchor.
Okay, Anchor. I've heard of that.
So Anchor's got like it just basically has an app that you can just download, and then you set everything up, and then just hit record, and it will publish it for you and everything. And it's nice if you're not going to put any effort into the production value of it. But once I listened to like 3 of them, I was like, I can't do it like this anymore. Right. I got to do something better. So I upgraded. I didn't upgrade like this, but I upgraded.
Well, I mean, this isn't really an upgrade. We got lucky when we first started. We got a bunch of musician friends, and they donated a lot of this stuff to us. Now, I've eventually bought this mic, and I bought that mic, and I've given stuff back that was donated to us. But this board was donated, all the power supplies, all the cabling, everything. So we got lucky, man. We had some friends that really were into this thing and supported it and gave us stuff.
Right.
So it's fantastic.
So I think it's worth noting how we got here for the uninitiated.
Yeah,
so
I had that down in my notes.
Okay, so the
Wide Awake Brewing Company.
The opening night.
Yeah.
Okay, so a guy I work with, I'm not even normally a go out and drink beer kind of dude, but the wife tells me at times like you got to socialize a little bit more, go out or whatever. And Mark, the guy I work with, was just so happened to hit me up that night, and he said, "Hey, I'm at this brewery. Why don't you stop by? It's right by your house." When it's right down the street from the house, I have less of an excuse to not come out. So I was like, "All right, I'll come out." And you were there because I guess you had just did something with them and you were drinking and
right. Yeah, I recorded an episode with them the weekend prior to their grand opening.
Right.
Yeah, to kind of help promote them.
So by default, me getting there, and then somehow the conversation came up, podcast, and then we overheard each other talking, and then it was like, we'll just set something in the future, maybe something like that. But then we've been beating around the bush with this thing for a while now. So
right, yeah. Yeah, I was actually sitting at the end of the bar. I had my headphone out. I was listening to a podcast, as a matter of fact, just sitting there drinking a couple beers, and I overheard you guys talking about podcasts for some reason, and it piqued my interest. I pulled the headphone out, and hey, what are you guys talking about? So you run a podcast, blah, 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 and that's how things kind of come together. And then, even then, the guy that was sitting there next to me, I don't know his name, but he even knew my brother, my older brother. He knew a bunch of the F3 guys. I guess he was in the F3 workout group over there. So just kind of funny how it's such a small world over here in Somerville, Berkeley County, whatever.
It is, because I come from a bigger area, but also like a small town as well. So like the greater Pittsburgh area, but then the town that I was, that I grew up in, Butler, which is right outside of Pittsburgh, like 30 minutes or so. It's not unlike Somerville in the sense that you can't really go anywhere and run into somebody that through like the 7 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon style, you can't find somebody else in common that you know.
Right.
And down here, more than anything else, at least that I've found, like on a dude, on a guy-to-guy level, the F3, everybody and their friggin' brother does F3 or knows somebody that does F3 or has attended it at one point in time.
Yeah, it's pretty big in Somerville.
I went with Mark a couple times.
I can write that down, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I've got shoddy shoulders. That was a couple times, and then I was like, nah, we're good with this. I gotta find something else to do, because those guys, at least the ones that we went to, hats off to those guys. They're out there getting it in each and every time they're out there, and I applaud anybody that's doing their best to make the best out of themselves. But
and early in the morning, by the way.
Well, early,
which is not my thing.
Right, early as shit. Yeah, exactly. That's
4:30, 5:30 in the morning.
Right. I got 3 kids. I'm not. But that's the F3 guys would say, well, that's an excuse, and we don't.
Yeah.
It's a place for everybody to go. I'm not trying to bash what they do, but no excuses are allowed there. So you better be ready to better yourself. And I can admire the accountability that they have for people there. But anyway, long story short, that's how you and I got plugged in.
Yep.
Sort of opposite ends of the spectrum as far as what we content wise, but we're
totally different.
But I mean, it's good to know that there is a community of people out there, as far as podcasting goes in the Somerville area. I mean, I'm sure outside of myself and you and another one that we mutually know, there's probably a couple more out here somewhere, because we talked about video being the wave of the future as far as podcasting goes, but I think podcasting in general is we're living in the now or in the future.
Big time, yeah.
Because this is it.
Yeah,
this is what's
I think within the last 2 years, probably it's gained the greatest notoriety. But it's been going on. I mean, if you look back at Joe Rogan, you look back at what's that guy's name, Adam Carolla. A couple of the pioneers of the game, 9 years ago, whatever it was.
Right.
But now, this is the now of podcast. I mean, people are starting to realize that this is the best place to get your information. When you look at all the fake news and all this other political stuff and people that have agendas, the podcast guys don't really have agendas. I mean, they're just out there speaking the truth, or what they think is their truth.
Right.
And there's no bias, I don't think, to be honest.
Honestly, if there is a bias, you get to choose what it is, because you're choosing the content that you're consuming. It's the beauty that is Netflix and stuff like that. I get to choose what I'm being subjected to, where if I watch the news, it's whatever Fox or CNN or MSNBC, what they are choosing to show me is what I am forced to consume. And that's, for the longest time, they could control the narrative like that. But if you trust the source in which you're receiving your information, you can sort of, whether it's good or bad, can control the narrative coming back your way. You know, it's like, well, being in the military, you meet people from different countries. Their history books are way different than our history books.
Yeah.
But it's about narrative and what they say happens and what we say happened, or the lens in which it's projected.
100%. Everybody's history is different.
Right. So I'm in a, or we are in a unique spot as far as being part of the conversation, but also being able to partake in the content of the conversation, that we can pick and choose where we choose to get our information from. Because honestly, 90% of the stuff I see on the news doesn't affect me on a day-to-day basis, or I could give a shit less about. Whereas I've got 20 different podcasts that I subscribe to, everything from political to science to political science and everything in between. But I can control what I'm consuming,
right?
Which I love.
But for sure. And the one thing I think I like more about the podcast aspect of it is, like you said, if you listen to Fox News, you're just going to get a right-wing perspective. If you listen to CNN, you're just going to get a left-wing perspective, for the most part. But what I like about most podcasts, now there's some that lean just one direction or the other, but the majority of them are guys or gals that allow anybody to come on their show. They'll allow any type of political standing or religious background or whatever, and they'll have a discussion about that. And it's not going to lean one way or the other. The listener is going to be able to make up their decision on which way they want to go with it.
Right.
Because we're just putting ideas out there and conversations out there. We're not leaning one way or the other, I think, for the most part, from the stuff that I listen to anyways. I'm sure there's other stuff out there that is just going to drill one mindset into you.
Right.
But I think for the most part, everybody is non-biased, and they listen to anybody.
Right.
Any idea is a good idea.
Well, I think what I'm encouraged by, at least as far as the podcast realm goes, is it's given guys like Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson, it has given them a much larger audience than they may have initially been subjected to, or would have had access to them in given any other context. Obviously, with Jordan Peterson and the thing that happened with him, it was Evergreen University or whatever that was. But then, guys like Rogan helped set the stage for guys like Sam Harris to get on that platform. And if you listen to their podcast, it's exactly like what you're talking about. They literally will pick a topic, bring in a noted, respected expert, scholar, or whatever it may be, and just say, let's talk about this.
And sometimes a counter expert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is even better.
Right.
Which is even better, as long as it doesn't, devolve into a argument more than anything else, which sometimes you see. But
and I mean, Rogan is my main go-to guy, and normally it's a pretty conservative conversation. It's pretty, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but there's no arguments. There's no infighting going on.
It's
there's
civil.
some disagreements. Yeah, it's civil. That's probably the word I'm looking for. So I love that, man, that you can just sit down and have a conversation and nobody gets angry. Nobody is judgmental. Nobody's screaming and yelling and calling people names. You're listening. You're actively listening.
Right.
And sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. Sometimes your mind has changed.
Right.
And that's the great thing is new information can make you change your mind.
What I've found, at least as far, and not to sound like old man wisdom here, because I'm clearly not, but what I've found is that you rarely change somebody's mind in an argument, but you have the ability to change their thinking moving forward through civil conversation.
Right.
So screaming at each other, especially I grew up in a house where he who was loudest won the conversation.
Sure.
Which is fine, because that's how our family dynamic operated, and that's well. But not everybody has those same rules of engagement, where we're going to scream at each other and whoever's the loudest wins. So if you have a situation where you have two individuals that, because, especially in the podcast format, if they are close to each other, like you and I aren't going to sit here, regardless of what happens to, we're not going to scream at each other because we're this far away from each other.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. It would something would really have to devolve very quickly in order for us to be in a situation where it was going to potentially turn into a screaming match. So you get guys like Rogan, or you get guys like Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson or Mike McHargue, and you get them and they have these conversations with people. Even if they don't agree, everybody remains civil and tries to get their point across because you're not separated by TV monitors. There's not a host right here and then everybody else is just a talking face on the screen.
Right.
You can't just scream and act wild with somebody, when you're face to face. Most people don't anyway. There's a lot less internet tough guys or a lot less internet experts whenever you're sitting across. I couldn't sit here and fake knowing a lot about thermodynamics when we're sitting right across, because you're going to look at me and go, I can smell the bullshit on you. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But if I'm over here and you're 10,000 miles away and we're talking through a median and I can have notes and everything else around me, I could fake it. But you can't do that. And that's what I love about podcasting as a whole and where media is heading, is that it's forcing this honesty. Like, you have got to be more authentic and more honest, because in a conversation like this, and there may be people who see the video or listen to this episode and go, that guy's full of shit. What's he babbling about? But you're sitting here. I'm not entirely full of shit. So there's something to this. Yeah. There's something to this median. And judging by the way it's growing, everybody, not everybody and their brother, but a lot of people have podcasts now because it's a chance for people to get their voice out that may not have previously been there.
Right.
So I love it, man.
And like it's been said a bunch of times, it's long-form communication. So instead of having a talk show where you get to sit down for 6 minutes or 10 minutes or something and try and prove a point, you can do that over an hour or over an hour and a half or 2 hours, or, Rogan's doing 3-4 hour podcasts. But that long-term communication, long format is the best place to get ideas across, because you just can't do it in a short amount of time, whether that's CNN, Fox News. Keep bringing up those two, but those are the two big guys.
Right, they're the heavy hitters.
But even the late night talk shows, you can't get information across in 6, 7, 10 minutes, even 20 minutes.
Right.
And that's why I created this show, was let's sit down, let's open a beer, let's get loose a little bit, let's expand some time and sit here and break things down, and get some real truth out of it. You can't do that in a short amount of time. Other podcasts that I know that I listen to here locally, they're doing 20, 30-minute podcasts. The conversation is just getting started at 20 or 30 minutes. You can't really dig into who a person is or get a personality or get a feel for somebody's real passions in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You really got to stretch it out a little bit, I think. Again, it's all opinions, but...
Yeah, so with our show, we've seen mixed success with our time format. And it's one of the things that that sort of bugs me the most as far as hammering it out. Like, your show, your content is geared towards that longer form conversation. Sometimes when it comes to stuff that's like sports or news related, people want that quick, they want that overview that fast.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But sometimes, like I said, like what we were talking about off air, is that there will be nothing going on. So you'll have to have these episodes where we fill stuff in. And like we did, I think for our Thanksgiving episode, because we took the week off for Thanksgiving, we did like a double episode.
Right.
It's the best numbers we've ever done.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was like 2 hours long, but it's the best numbers we ever did. And I track them throughout the week. It was the best numbers we've ever done before it hit the point where it was like, oh, it's because you went a week without doing it. It was like, we released that double episode, and it was, almost 2 hours of my brother and I talking about sports and sports betting. And it was the best we'd ever done. And then we do another one that's half the length, that does half the numbers. But then the next one is half the length, and it does good enough. So it's like, honestly, at least in my realm or my landscape with sports, I think it's a matter of what people are willing to consume in that chunk, in that time. Whereas, things like yours where you've got these conversations, like I can tell you for a fact, your episodes, like, because I drive to Savannah a lot for work, I'll start one, same thing like somebody does with a Rogan. I'll start it until somebody calls me or something like that. I'll listen to it, and then I'll take the call, and then I digest it in another chunk until another call comes in, or I get where I'm going, or do whatever. So I consume your episodes, but depending on the length of them, it's either 1, 2, 3, 5 different chunks. Whereas if it's something that's news or sports related, you may only have somebody's attention for 15, 20 minutes tops. Like, you got it. I want that information.
Right.
What do I need to do? So I like I said, and I know I've been, weirdly singing your praises a lot about stuff, but I love your setup, man. I love conversations and wanting to talk to people, but what we do isn't necessarily geared in that direction, but I love stuff like this.
Right.
So I really like
appreciate it.
I really like it.
And when I do solo stuff, obviously I try not to stretch it out too far. I just do 30, 45 minutes or so. But yeah, when I have a guest, I mean, I think, to me, the hour 45, 2 hour time frame is kind of a sweet spot for me. Mm-hmm. We used to do, we first started this podcast, and I keep saying we, it was me and another guy originally, but it's just me now. But we originally started off saying, man.
You okay if I crack this?
Oh, we're going to do it in just 1 second.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
But, we started off saying, how are we going to even fill 30 minutes worth of time?
Right.
In the very first episode, we went like 2.5 hours.
Right.
You hit the record button, and next thing you know, like, holy shit, it's been 2.5 hours.
Right.
So it's easy to have if you're having a good conversation, it's easy to have a long conversation.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You mentioned a beer. That's a good idea. This is a show about craft beer. So give me 1 second. I'm going to cut this AC off because I hate having the noise of the AC coming on. Okay. So give me 1 second.
Here you go.
Yeah, even though I have the headphones on, I can still hear, that air blowing through the vents, and it pisses me off. So I'll go in and try and cut out some of that in the audio. But yeah, let's open a beer. That's a good call, Dale.
All right.
And your last name is Lipton, is that correct?
Lipan.
Okay, so it's not Lipton. I was thinking it was like the
like the tea.
No, not like the tea. The guy that does the Actors Guild. What's that guy's name?
Oh, James Lipton.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was something like that.
Sure.
But
I'll probably look like him when I'm older. Yeah. Beard and the wrinkly face and all that stuff.
So I missed the. There was no tea in there, I guess.
No, you're good.
Oh, let me pour yours first, buddy.
You're gonna pour my beer for me?
Yeah, fuck yeah. That's what I do over here, man. I'm the host.
Well, I understand that, but that's all right. Shit.
And I do this for a living.
You're making me feel real special right now, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
For you, buddy. Right, and we'll talk about this beer here in a second. So this is a Highwire lager. You mentioned that you wanted a lager, so
yeah.
I've had a Highwire rep on, as a matter of fact, at one point.
Okay.
He was a fantastic guest. He brought us his Highwire sign. As a matter of fact, it's back here behind the camera. You can't see it. It's been on the camera many times, but
I got you.
Highwire Brewing. This is a lager brewed with 100% Pilsner malt and slightly hopped with German Hallertau and U.S. Tettinen. God damn it. Tettinen hops. There you go. This brew is fermented with German lager yeast and aged in the tradition of the style. And Highwire Brewing Company, by the way, is out of Asheville, North Carolina, and known for producing approachable and balanced ales and lagers. So that's what Highwire Brewing does out of Asheville.
Well, it's a cute play on words.
Yeah.
Balanced ales and then the balance on a high wire. I like it. Okay, fair enough.
So I love these guys, man. They're doing really good stuff. They've grown a lot. Initially, kind of so-so beers, but I think in the past couple of years or so, they've stepped it up a little bit, and they're one of the highest producing breweries up there in Asheville right now. Right. So,
well, I'm super late to the beer game. Admittedly, through most of my, post high school, military, and then even most of my, after that adult life, I just strictly was a whiskey guy. Like, that just was my thing. I just loved whiskey. 2 fingers of whiskey, maybe a splash of water.
Sure.
That was about it. And then a buddy of mine was like, dude, can you just drink beer instead of stop being so damn difficult every time we go somewhere and everything like that. So I started, very, very basic with just Yingling and things like that, and just it wasn't until recently that I really just was even brave enough to step out of that that comfort zone of just the mainstays that you can get at the store, you know, and then move into an area like this where there's friggin' breweries everywhere, man. Everybody's like, you got to try this, you got to try that, you know, and it's, man, there was just a mind blowing. I have no idea how much shit's out there, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's overwhelming at this point. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, with that, do you think that the market gets muddled down with bad beer because there's so many people trying to get into it, or are you thinking it's making everybody raise their game up?
I think it's done, just like you said, the latter part of that. I mean, I think, people say, are we going to reach a bubble, kind of like a housing bubble or market or whatever, where things just going to explode and it's no good anymore. But I think everybody is producing better and better beer. I think each brewery that opens up, I've seen an increased product,
right,
from what days of old, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. People are stepping it up and doing it right, straight out of the box. As an example, Wide Awake Brewing Company, those guys are on the table over here. Right out the box, they came out with some pretty decent beers. I mean, was it fantastic?
Right.
Was it top of the line? No, it wasn't. But I've seen other breweries, 2, 3 years, 5 years ago that came out the box and you were like, this is crap. I mean, it's bullshit. These guys should not even be open. And they've stood the test of time. Most of them are still around and they're doing great things now. But these guys came out the box doing great stuff from the get-go. So
right.
I think people were stepping it up and they're learning the game, and there's more materials out there, more education out there as how to get started,
right.
and to do it the right way to begin with.
Right.
And I think everybody is flourishing. I think it's not a game where most businesses are out there in competition with each other, like a Lowe's and a Home Depot, or a Walmart and a Target, or a Kmart, or whatever. You're in competition. You're trying to put the other guy out of business. You're trying
right.
to get all of their business, whereas breweries are collaborators.
Right.
They want to work together, and they want you to go to this guy's brewery, and they want you to come to their brewery, and then they want you to go to the next guy's brewery, and they want it to be like a round robin,
right.
where you're doing things throughout the day and you're enjoying everybody's beer.
Yeah.
And then those guys are collaborating, and they're making collaborative beers together and enjoying the whole process as a family versus a competition. So
right.
I love it. I don't think it's ever going to get saturated or oversaturated. Right. We talk about Asheville. Asheville has the most breweries per capita in the United States, I think, right now still.
Right.
Charleston, I think now we're up to 31 breweries within the Low Country.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I do a lot. I mean, just do a lot of business in the city and just driving around, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Let's cheers.
And I mean, speaking of that, let's cheers to podcast.
Yeah, man, for sure.
In collaboration on that.
Oh, thank you, sir. That's good after a day of work. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a nice light lager. Easy drinking, refreshing.
So, yeah, I like that a lot. I forgot what I was going to say because I just wanted to say I like that. Yeah, I mean, so what you're describing to me and what it sounds like as far as where I see it going is it seems like it's more of a culture than it is anything else. Whereas, like, your big boy heavy hitters, it's almost like corporation style. Like you said, somebody's trying to take business from somebody else.
Yeah, the big boys. Yeah.
But if you're these smaller breweries, it's almost, you're trying to promote the culture and the consumption and just the actual community of it, which is great. Because it wasn't that long ago, I remember, not that it was like a joke, but this idea of like, Dale makes beer, he's got his own little micro thing where he's just making beer, and you're just, you go over to a guy's house and he's got like 6 nondescript bottles because his wife bought him some beer making kit for Christmas, and he made a couple bottles of beer, and then you and your buddies would sit in a garage and take a sip and try not to throw up while you tell this guy like, oh yeah, it's good beer. It's kind of right. But now it's, you go to a guy's house and he's like, yeah, I brew beer, or I make beer or whatever, and he can hand you a beer and you drink, be like, damn, Steve, this shit is good, man.
It's better than anything I've had at a brewery.
This is really good.
Yeah, my younger brother does it right now, and I brewed myself as well, but my younger brother's doing some fantastic beer right now, and we want to open up our own breweries at one point. And I just want to interject for a second.
Yeah.
I'll be writing some stuff down. I'll be doing some stuff on the computer. I don't have an intern. I don't have anybody else working for me. I don't have a Jamie. I don't have all these other people. So I'm not trying to ignore you. I don't mean to be rude if I write some stuff down or whatever. But I'm just trying to make sure I get show notes, and I'm trying to look up information if we need it. But
I usually have so there's this really great company and I don't know how you feel about free plugs or anything like that, but
No.
there's this,
It's all free on this show.
yeah. there's this really great company out there called Field Notes. They make really, really high quality and affordable notebooks that are like pocket size. They fit perfectly and they're super durable.
Yeah.
I subscribe to them. It's like a subscription based thing. So every 3 months they send me a pack. I've been a customer of theirs for probably 7 years now. Because I write notes constantly. So I don't have it in my pocket now because the only notebook that I take with me to work is my work notebook. So I emptied out my pockets with the exception of my phone before I come in. But I can walk out to my truck and get it. I mean, I'm always taking notes. So you feel free. What it is, it honestly shows me what everybody else sees all the time. Because as soon as somebody says something that I like or I want to look at or do whatever, I write it down.
Yeah.
So I'm
if I don't write it down, I do not remember it. So, and I try and make sure I catch everybody in the show notes and tag people and hashtag people and all the fun stuff you're supposed to do on Instagram. Right. But
yeah, I love Field Notes. They're worth looking into for sure. All right, but I don't want to get away from it because you said it because you were talking about your brewery. But I was listening to one of your other episodes, and you had mentioned it. So, aspirations wise, you recently flirted with the idea of a mayoral run,
right?
Which is another future aspiration. So I've heard you come up with 2 of them now. One brewery maybe and mayoral run. So. Right. Is that a legitimate thing we're doing, or you're thinking about it, or what's the?
No, it's legit. I mean, as far as the brewery goes, both my brothers. I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. We're all about 4.5 years apart, and we've kicked around the idea of opening a brewery for, I don't know, 10 years now probably. Right. And we've thought of some different names. Three Brothers Brewing. I mean, my younger brother does. He lists his stuff as Dale's Ale Works right now, so that's another name that we thought of. But I brew. My younger brother brews. My older brother has been in restaurant management for 18 or 20 years before he got into some IT work. So we've got all the tools, I think, right, as far as management and business sense and brewery experience and things like that. But yeah, they both still have their own day jobs right now, and they're trying to support families and kids and wives and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting here just doing my own thing with the Homegrown Brew House, partnered up with those guys. So we all definitely have a beer knowledge, and I think we would do a great thing, but we just haven't gotten off the ground yet. We want to do it. Right. I think we could put out a good product and be successful, but one day, and I'm hoping that, as I just said, the market is not oversaturated when we try and jump into it, right, which I don't think it will be. But yeah, the mayoral run is a thought. Dorchester County, Somerville, there is a mayor now that people are not super fond of. They were pretty fond of the last mayor, Mayor Collins, Mayor Riley right now. Wiley. Okay, yeah. I was trying to remember the signs last time I saw them, who it was. Okay. Yeah, him and his cabinet are not the most popular in the world right now. So me and a buddy of mine, Fleming Moore, are both thinking about running. We haven't thrown our name in the hat officially yet. There's 2 guys that are out there right now that have definitely thrown their name in the hat, that are definitely going to run. Wiley might run again. He hasn't said for sure yet. Mayor Collins, that got beat last time, he might come back and throw his name in the hat as well. And these are all kind of, older guys. Right. I'm trying to look at it from a younger perspective and say, hey, look, man, I think, the old ways and the old thoughts of the way this town should be run, and let's keep it this nice, sleepy little Somerville town, and let's not grow. And everybody wants to maintain all the history and all the all the old stuff that has happened in this town. That's fantastic. I mean, history is great, but we need progress as well. So I've thought about it. I feel like I've got a pulse on the city, on the town. I grew up here, North Charleston originally, but I've been in Somerville since 1986. Right. And I don't know. I just feel like I know how to lead people, for one. I mean, 21 years in the military, I've done that. And I feel like I'm a positive influence. I feel like I have some sense about me. I'm smart. And I just think I could make some good changes. And I think my biggest thing is I would listen to people and integrate their ideas,
Right.
and not be so combative against ideas.
Right.
I guess is what I'm saying. A lot of people are just hell bent on their ideas, and it's only my way or the highway type thing.
Right.
Without listening to the constituents that got you in the office in the first place.
Right.
And I think government should be for the people by the people type thing.
I would agree. 100%.
So it's a thought. I've got some time to kind of to mull it around and still figure it out before I throw my name in the hat, but it's a thought. Yeah.
So just because I'm new to the Somerville area, I just moved here 3 years ago.
Right, and that was one of my things in my notes.
Yeah.
I wanted, because I didn't know if you were from Somerville originally or not,
No.
but I wanted to kind of get a background on how you ended up in Somerville. But
Yeah. So we'll get there real quick, but I just
Okay.
So just basically how things are normally done as far as like smaller cities or boroughs or whatever, at least up in PA where I'm from, not all mayors get paid, or it's like a part-time position or something like that.
same thing.
It's the same thing down here?
Yeah.
Okay, because Somerville's a big town, whether they want to portray it as a sleepy little southern town still or not, it's not, and it's growing whether they're ready for it or not.
Yeah.
It's going to get bigger. So a lot of times you see where these towns turn into cities, and then
and that's the thing is a lot of these people around this town don't want it to become that. They're like, oh, we want it to be just small Somerville. We don't want it to be Charleston. We don't want to be Mount Pleasant. We don't want to be West Astor. Well, why not? What's wrong with those towns? I mean, what's wrong with growth? Why do you want to stagnate your growth?
Right.
I don't see it. I don't see why.
Right.
They probably don't want the extra people in town. They don't want the extra traffic, the extra headache. But if you accommodate that, you prepare for that, and you build around that, then you're still the same town that flourishes and does whatever it's done before. You just you have more people in it.
Right.
I mean, it should be the same feel, but you have to build the infrastructure around that growth. And I think that's what has happened. And I think that's what people are pissed off about is, look, we're growing too fast for the infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And you can't get around town within 15 minutes. You can't go from one side to the other in 15 minutes anymore. I mean, it takes you a half an hour to get across town. So
Somerville's the most beautiful parking lot I've ever visited.
Right. So we got to figure out a way to fix that. That's the problem. It's not the people that are coming into this town. It's that we don't have the facilities to accommodate those people.
Well, as counterproductive as it may seem, I think growth is the way to thin it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Is if things continue to grow, then it spreads it out more. If we move further up 26 or whatever and things grow in these other neighborhoods, it reduces the concentration of people in those certain areas. Like North Main and South Main on a Saturday is insufferable. You can't go. But if you live in anywhere from like the Cane Bay area to Knightsville, and you want to go to Target, where the hell else are you going to go? Mm-hmm. You have to go there. Yeah. So you have to go into the lion's den, if you will, in order to go to Target. There's no other option unless you want to drive way down on Rivers or something like that.
Sure.
Where are you going to go? So the only way to thin that concentration of people out, as counterproductive as it might seem, is to grow more, to sort of give people another option and another area to go, which is why I'm super pumped up as far as, because I live out in Cane Bay, is to see that whole Nexton Parkway area and that whole Nexton area. Dude, the faster that shit grows, the better, man. Just get get a Harris Teeter back there, get a Lowe's, get a Target. You will never see me over on this side of town unless I'm coming to get something to eat or, go to Homegrown or get a drink, whatever. It will diminish that cluster that is North and South Main on a freaking Saturday, man.
Right. Yeah, so, people balk about that, about the Mercedes coming in, the Volvos coming in, and the next one coming in, and all the people from Ohio that are coming down and whatever. Right. Why would you not want your town to grow? Why would you not want people to come and spend their money in your town? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, first of all, the people that are complaining about people from Ohio being down here, you've never been to Ohio, because if you go to Ohio, you would realize why people want to leave, because Ohio sucks. Yeah. I mean, listen, we should almost be embracing people from Ohio as if they're like refugees. Dude, Ohio,
Yeah.
You're talking.
I've joked, about building a wall around Somerville to
Right.
keep all the Ohio people out. But no, we want people to come in. We want
Right.
people's money. Come in.
Yeah.
And ideas.
Right.
People come in from other parts of the country that have great progressive ideas. Bring those people in. Let them spend their money. Let's get their taxes. And let's help grow this town and make it the best place in the South.
Right.
People to come.
I have an ongoing feud with Ohio and Philadelphia. So if you listen to any number of my episodes, I consistently talk shit about this place because being from Pittsburgh, it's almost a mandatory. But you're talking about it. You're talking about a state, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about Ohio. You're talking about a state where one of their rivers was so polluted at one point in time it caught on fire. I think it was the Cuyahoga River, caught on fire. Okay. It was so polluted. I think it was in the 70s, 76 or something like that.
Ohio River fire.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So polluted that it caught on fire and
Yeah.
that they couldn't put it out. That's how bad that place. I'm just throwing. It's not. Maybe I don't think it's still. You could catch it on fire, dude. Just any place like that.
Possibly.
But all right.
So how did you come down here from Pittsburgh?
All right.
And are you a Steelers fan or an Eagles fan? I guess you would be Steelers.
Just by default, I can't root for anything Philadelphia.
Right. I'm an Eagles fan.
Outside of Rocky, there is nothing in Philadelphia that would even remotely interest me. Well, cheesesteaks too, obviously.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, but okay. So we're both Air Force guys.
Okay.
We haven't touched on that yet.
No.
So 100%. We've only had one beer. I have not partaken in any of the devil's lettuce or anything like that. But I have to
deep. You got some if you want.
I've got a deep dive on this to see if you think this is freaky as I do. All right. So I signed up for the Air Force. Right. The Air Force, in and of itself, if you look at all Air Force veterans from time immemorial, right, from Army Air Corps till now, okay, that's a limited number of people, right? So within that limited number of people, there were people named Brian and people named Dale. Okay? Right?
Yep.
Okay. Thus representing you and I. All right. I sign up, go to Okinawa. In Okinawa, I meet one of my best friends on the entire planet. To this day, talk to him for an hour today on the phone. It's my dude, right? His name is Brian. Okay. Right? So listen. So a Brian and a Dale meet in the Air Force and become great friends.
Right.
Best of friends. Fast forward to 2018, or maybe it was 2019, whenever it was that you and I met.
It's 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
February. I meet you, a fellow Air Force veteran, and your name is the conjunction of our two names within that small spectrum of people. So,
right. There's an S on Dale's, but yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's one letter different.
Yeah,
and it's not even like it'd be listed. It'd be different if your first name or your last name was Sales, but no, it's Dale's. Like my first name is Dale. His first name is Brian. We were both in the Air Force. You were in the Air Force. Your name is the collaboration of both of our names together with an S on the end of it. And you and I met. The numbers for that to have actually happened have to be infinitesimal.
Right.
It can't be any smaller. It would be like if I won the lottery, then my oldest won the lottery, and then my youngest won the lottery. Like that, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
There's not even a way to equate the math to that.
I didn't know that, but that's a good point.
I'm just saying, anyway, I know that sounds like a super weird, that guy, doesn't have a lot of brain cells thing, but that blows my mind.
No, that's somebody that has a lot of brain cells, somebody that can think, and put those thoughts together.
But it just blew my mind that like literally your name, and even then, it's not like we met or you were part of something like, like my banker or something like that. Like we share a commonality within something. Within
podcasting, yeah.
Well, not even but within the Air Force.
Okay.
So like we're both Air Force veterans. Mm-hmm. Like, and then that's where. But anyway, all right. I'm deep diving into this too much.
No, that was great.
Okay, so
what did you do in the Air Force?
I was POL. So I basically made sure that planes
are calibrated and stuff.
No, well, planes got gas and
okay, yeah. Different.
So, what'd you do?
Physical and occupational therapy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, hospital job.
I have to have you look at
nice and cushy.
Look at my shoulders.
Air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I joke around, and I know you've seen some of the stuff I post up on Instagram and stuff like that, but when I went and took my ASVAB, it's one of those things where it was like I didn't realize, and I try to tell kids this now because I've done stuff with youth coaching and things like that, is any job that you can imagine in the civilian world, with the exception of maybe a handful, is available to you in some way, shape, or form in military format.
Yeah, it's like a small town on an Air Force base. Yeah, you get every job that you have anywhere else.
Right. So like, it would trip me out to go to like the hospital on base, and there'd be some dude that was a dental hygienist, and he was like a staff sergeant, and you're cleaning my teeth, and I'm like, how is this a thing? Like, you're getting paid, right? Like VA home loan eligible, Montgomery GI Bill, post 9/11 GI Bill eligible. You're doing all these things, and you're a dental hygienist. Like, dude, what? Like, I want to punch my recruiter in the mouth. What are you doing? I'm sweating on the flight line, bro. You could have told me I could have been hanging out. You know what I'm saying? Like chilling in the hospital, or you go to like transport or something like that. Come on, man. It literally, for people that don't know, if you think of a job in the civilian world, it exists in the military, and you can go and you can reap all the benefits that Uncle Sam offers, and it's a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
You can do all of that. And
I was a recruiter for a while as well.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, this might be the part where we start screaming at each other. But no, I mean, literally, like anything you want to do, man, it's crazy. And I loved and hated my time in. Obviously, didn't do 21 years, but it was a thing. But anyway, when I got out, I took a job in Greenville, South Carolina, and I worked for the South Carolina Department of Corrections for a couple of years outside of Greenville, South Carolina. But we're originally from Pittsburgh, but when we decided that we want to start a family, we wanted to do it close to home. We were down here. We didn't have a support system or anything like that. So if we wanted to have kids, we want to be near the grandparents and everything like that. So we moved back up to Butler, which is right outside Pittsburgh, like I said. And then I worked for the Department of Corrections up there for a long time. And we basically decided that we wanted to go to the place. We wanted to live in the place where we go on vacation, is essentially what it is. So there's no point in sitting up there and suffering in winters that are sitting at -10, -15 degrees whenever there's places that exist like this. And with the growth that the Somerville area has seen and that the Charleston area has seen, we were like, we shouldn't have any problem getting jobs and moving down here and making it work. So I went with a job that I knew I could get, and I worked for the Federal Bureau of Prisons out in Salters for a while. Because I knew I could get it. I mean, I didn't even hit send on the application on USA Jobs, and they were calling me like, you ready? I'm sure, I guess. Yeah. But we used that to get down here, and that was the vehicle that got us down here. But obviously didn't want to live in Bono or St. Stephen's or Salters or Williamsburg, because there's nothing out there. They don't, it's not of any fault of their own, but there's not a good education system out there that I wanted to put my kids or anything like that. So Somerville was the closest high-quality town, area, whatever, that wasn't Florence between here and there that we could go to.
Right.
So that's how I got here.
How did that get on your radar, versus something in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina?
Because we vacationed in Charleston.
Okay.
So we come down here and we go to Foley. And Foley to there was further, and obviously with the housing market down there, I can't afford a beach house or anything like that. Right. But Somerville was a cool spot where your dollar could take you a little bit further than it could, the closer you got to the city. And we're not big inner city people either, so I wasn't like trying to do that whole apartment life with kids and all that kind of stuff. So,
I guess it helps. The Charleston area has been retirement magazine, travel magazine. Right. I mean, the top places to go forever, right? So, yeah, I guess a lot of people have that on their radar because of that. But
we initially looked at Beaufort. And I can't remember the website, but there's like somebody made this really great website that like will list and it basically rates towns, everything from crime rate to education, like puts them on a grade scale. And Beaufort was like really great, and we had visited before in the past, but it was the crime rate was higher than what we were willing to accept, and we were coming from a high crime area, so we were like, no, we're not going to do. If there's one thing that we're going to be sure that we avoid, is an area with a crime rate that is, at least according to this website, statistically like where we're at. So Somerville was a good median. So we came down here for a little over a week and stayed in Folly, and then we would spend the day or mornings at the beach, and then we'd drive up and sort of hang out and drive around and sort of look around. And then when we moved down here, we actually moved into Pine Forest, and I lived there for a while before we built our house out where we're at now. So
where's Pine Forest?
The country club, right across.
Oh yeah, Pine Forest.
Yeah,
never mind.
I was trying not to say the country club because it makes me sound like a douchebag, but
right. No, but it's not, man. That's
that's
good real estate.
Yeah, no, it is, and we probably should have stayed in there, but yeah, that's how we got down here. So
right,
that's where we're at now. So, but you said you've been here since '86.
Yeah, we moved to Somerville, my family and I, in '86. Yeah. And then I was here till '92, and then I joined the military and went away for about 21 years, and just recently came back in 2014. So, but yeah, the rest of my family's been here for a long, long time. Yeah.
Well, if you're going to run for mayor, those are the kind of roots you need in an area, because people.
I think so.
People get.
Yeah, people like that.
They get tied up on that. Like, he's been here. He's not an outsider. He's one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good.
Right. Yeah, but that's an interest, right? Because you're here. You've been here.
Well, I think the other thing that would work with something like that too is, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, you don't need it. Like some people need power, some people need validation, some people need that I'm contributing style thing. But if you have just a general disposition of helping and at ease and wanting to make things better, not only for the people that are here, but because you're here, that goes a long way. And, you being as entrenched as it appears that you are in this community, I think that goes a long way for something like that. And people like you and people in that position are what's needed in towns like this in those leadership positions. So
right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I gave up the military. I gave up a government contracting job to do what I like and do what I enjoy and do what I love, which is beer centric. I mean, I'm a bartender. I do a podcast about beer. I do a podcast, and I do it without any compensation whatsoever. I don't have any advertising. I don't have any money. So, yeah, I think to do a mayoral run would be just for the fun of doing it, just because I enjoy it, not because I have an agenda, not because I need constituents, not because I need donators and money in my pocket, and not because I need contacts. It would just be for the fun of doing it and to do it greatly, to do a good job at it,
Yeah, well, I mean, the fun is it when you say do it for fun, and the fun comes in the fact that you can do it without reservations on whether or not you're helping people. So you can approach it under the guise of, I'm here to help.
Right.
So if you don't have any ulterior motive behind it, I think that's...
And I mean, it's my town, so I'm helping myself by helping everybody else.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which was one of the things, we're, not to make it a political conversation, and I don't want to, is one of the things that I liked about, the most recent presidential run that we saw was a little bit of, like, money initially on the table wasn't the big factor. It wasn't like I'm doing this because of money or potential money or things like that. That was already eliminated off the jump. So that when you don't have the money vested interest in it, but rather the embetterment vested interest, that's what it's about. Especially in a smaller town, the more you want to see your small town succeed, your small town be better, I think that's great, man. I mean, especially if you have the means and the gumption and the want to do it.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, like, you hear guys like Rogan say, like, you'd have to be like the biggest narcissist or like the biggest asshole in the world to want to be the president, to have everybody staring at you all the time and ripping your life and every word apart. A mayor is a position, and I think even like a representative or even a governor on maybe a lesser scale is one of the few positions in a government standpoint where you actually can make a tangible difference.
I think so too. You're not controlled by any special interests or anything like that. I mean, you're just a project manager of a town. I mean, you're just helping direct some projects
Yeah.
and allocate some money here and there and make some improvements and, plant some trees, whatever.
Right.
Repair some roads. I mean,
Right.
it's not, you're not looking for those, big oil and pharmaceutical companies and whatever to line your pockets and influence you. You're doing what's best for the town.
Right.
I think. And there's some that will still, figure out a way to make that stupid. But
of course. All right, so let's get back to beer because I'm.
Oh, you need another beer.
Yeah, I need another. So, but I wanted to ask this of you then, and we didn't. I didn't. So, with the growth of beer, the beer industry, the craft beer industry, everything that's going on, as far as like I'm a look forward kind of guy. The industry itself growing is great, but what's the, in your opinion? Sorry, I could.
No, you're fine. You're good.
What's the what's next? Like what's the new wave? What are we going to see next in the beer world? So craft beer's taking off, so that's like sort of where we're at. But what's going to come after this?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. So the way I look,
I would see maybe more of a meshing of the liquor community and the beer community coming together and doing more stuff together.
Okay.
We're already doing barrel-aged, beers. We're already doing liquors. Are already infusing their whiskeys and stuff in stout barrels and IPA barrels and
That's
things
a good
like
point.
that.
Yeah, you do see a lot of that now.
So I think there's going to be just a collaboration of those two guys. I don't see where wine's going to be coming into play very much. They don't really play well together with the two. But I think liquor and beer are going to kind of join forces a little bit more.
Right.
That's what I would see. I don't know.
No, it's weird. As soon as you said like the barrel age stuff, I started thinking about all the stuff that I've had recently that's been, whatever, sat in a whiskey barrel or a bourbon barrel or whatever.
And I'll tell you what, I've even seen a resurgence of the past. I think, we hit this growth where, it used to be you had a lager, you had an IPA, you had a brown, you had maybe a stout, you had maybe a porter, and that was it. You had like 4 or 5 different styles, and now the styles are like tenfold. I mean, You've got just a sour, you've got a porter, you've got a red, you've got a barrel aged, you've got this and that, and it seems like lately things have kind of gone back to just traditional styles.
Right.
I think we're kind of reverting, and everybody's over all this fancy New England style IPAs, milkshake IPAs, all the different sours that you can get, lactose beers.
I just saw something with that the other day. What is that? What is lactose beer?
Lactose, it's a sugar, that comes from milk.
Okay.
It's a lactose, it's a sugar. So they're adding that to beers. It kind of thickens it up a little bit. It gives it a little bit more of a mouthfeel. It adds more sugar, so you can get more alcohol out of the yeast. When you're fermenting.
Is it like syrupy or what? How does it?
No, not really syrupy, but it gives it a little more sweetness and just it kind of thickens the beer up a little bit.
Okay.
So that's why they call it milkshake IPAs quite often. But I feel like we're kind of getting away from all this fancy, extravagant, way out there type beers, and we're kind of going back to the traditional lagers, and we're going back to the traditional West Coast style IPAs and bitterness and things. I think it's reverting back to some smaller scale stuff instead of just being way out here and just anything goes.
Right.
I think we're kind of down it back into the basics is what I see it going to.
I think you saw. I mean, at least I remember a couple years ago what it was. I forget what the company was. I think it was Pinnacle. But remember, like Pinnacle Vodka made for a while there. They like had everything from like raspberry to like Thanksgiving dinner flavored vodka, and it was like
pickle just whatever,
just all kinds of just crazy shit. And you're like, this can't even be like, what are you making using turducken vodka? Like, what are you possibly gonna make? Who's gonna sit there and drink any sort of drink with whatever? I don't know, grandma's sugar cookie vodka in there, whatever the hell's.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of just gotten out of control.
Right, right.
Oh my God, there's a niche for everybody, which is great. You're kind of hitting, and they're trying to pull in those people that say that I'm not a beer drinker. I don't like beer.
Right.
Well, there's a beer for everybody. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
You just haven't found the right beer for you yet.
Right.
But they're trying to pull in those women that like wine. They're trying to pull in the cider people. They're trying to pull in People that like sweet dessert type beers. They're trying to pull in people that don't like bitterness in their beers from an IPA. So they're doing that to appease customers, which is great. But I think now that they've pulled people in and people have a palate for craft beer,
right,
that it's going to start going back to just kind of the traditional type beers.
Right.
Because they've already pulled them in.
right.
Now they just need to keep them there and they can get them to like the old style type stuff,
Right.
if that makes sense. But,
No, I'm with you. Like I said, for the longest time I was just traditionalist style, just whiskey with a splash of water, and that was basically it. And even then, if I want to get real fancy now, I'll just throw some whiskey and some ginger ale together, and that's about as fancy as I get outside of beer. So, I guess maybe I'm thinking, and again, this could be my own not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. It seems like everything now, especially having a beard and stuff like that, I see stuff like that all the time. Like everybody's putting CBD in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's all gimmicks.
Yeah, we had somebody reach out. It was like, hey, we got this CBD beard oil, and I'm like, my beard doesn't
need to be relaxed.
Doesn't give a shit whether or not there's CBD in it. It doesn't bother me at all. So I maybe like hemp beers or CBD or anything like that. I mean, because you can buy CBD coffee now,
right?
Which is
it's definitely a thing,
right?
They're doing big things in Colorado with all that stuff, but
right. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I just wonder what the next thing is, because I'm always looking to invest too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Be that guy that hell if milkshake IPAs are going to be the next thing that turns me into a millionaire, I'll be.
Yeah, but I think they're all
on that milkshake IPA train. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're all kind of
sorry,
falling stars. I mean, I think they have a limited amount of success and then they fall out. But
yeah,
because it's all just gimmicks. I mean, people just want a gimmick, and then that gimmick kind of falls, and then okay, what's my next gimmick?
Right.
And that falls. I mean, there's nothing to sustainable, I don't think.
Right.
In the beer industry, I think it's all gimmicks.
They're all fidget spinners. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got 4 of those things laying around my house, man.
Right.
Fidget spinners coming out of my ears. Which, funny, what's going to happen is 30 years from now, those fidget spinners are going to be worth $200 a piece or $300 a piece.
For sure.
And it's just going to be some stupid thing. Like, it had me thinking whenever I was talking about how it used to be like a, sort of tease a guy that used to make his own beer. I remember that being a thing, and then that was right around the same time that Bitcoin was like, people were, it's just digital currency. What the hell? This shit, nobody's ever going to touch that.
I think that's still going to be a thing, though, for sure.
I think it will be too. And I remember watching a special. The guy that did Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, did he had some other show after the Super Size Me thing where he went around. I think he had like 3 Bitcoin or something like that, and he was going around New York and various areas trying to buy a slice of pizza or a cup of coffee or whatever using Bitcoin. But this was 10 years ago or whatever. And I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. But if I could find the episode, go back and look at it. At the height of Bitcoin last summer, if you were to take that same thing and translate it to what it was, the amount he had then to what it was last summer, he was probably trying to buy pizza at like $30,000 a slice. Is essentially what it was boiling out to, because it was just unbelievable, the way that we saw that explosion. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what's coming next. I would like to get ahead of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then, especially as far as beer goes, I mean, if you're looking to start a brewery, I mean, what, how I guess, so here's a question for you then, was how, if you're going to be a brewery, or if you're doing that and you're pursuing that further, what do you do that makes you stand out in a crowded room? So if there's 31 breweries here in Charleston and you start Dale's Ales or whatever the case may be, do you try to stand out, or do you try to do one thing, do it really well, or what's those looking to get started in this craft beer space? What should they be looking for as far as what's a measure of success?
Right. I think just like anything else, you could have location. Location is number one. And you've got to have a niche. I mean, you've got to have something that you specialize in that nobody else is doing. Mm-hmm. So whatever that may be, I don't know what that is at the moment, but you've got to have something that you're doing that nobody else is doing out there. But then you also have to emulate and and appreciate what everybody else is doing too. If somebody has a great concert space and a sound stage and they do live music, that's fantastic. Then let's kind of mimic that. If you've got somebody that has great food and a great kitchen and a great chef, then let's mimic that. I mean, you have to emulate and copy some things. I mean,
Right.
There are no original ideas out there anymore, I don't think. I mean, you have to pick and choose what you want to do, but I think location is number one. That's first and foremost.
Right.
And I'm not going to pull any punches. Let's talk about Wide Awake Brewing Company. I mean, their location is horrible.
It's not my
Their
favorite.
space is
Small.
abysmal.
It's small.
Yeah, but they've got a good product, so I think that's going to help them stay relevant, but they're going to outgrow that space and have to move, I think, very quickly.
Yes.
If they continue to do what they're doing and continue to improve their product and their beer, they're going to outgrow that space. They're going to have to go somewhere else. But so I think location is number one. You got to have a great space that you can grow into, that you're not going to have to move and pick up and go somewhere else.
Right.
People want to know where you are and they want to go there. They don't want to pick up and move and go somewhere
Right.
else now. So, which multiple people have done that in the Low Country. Tradesman has moved. Holy City is moving as we speak. Who else? A couple other people that I know of, but I
Right.
can't think of them. Fat Pig started somewhere and they moved to somewhere else. But I think location is number one. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but location for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to.
But obviously, you got to have a good product.
Right. Well, I mean, so you have to do a product, and you have to do something that stands out. And you got to create, I think, some sort of. You have to create a product that I think resonates with people, whether it be.
And you got to have great people.
Right. That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I you know what though? And here's where I think a lot of restaurants, breweries, or even businesses as a whole get it wrong, is that the people that represent your product are just as powerful as your product itself. I've gone to restaurants and had shitty meals, but the staff, the space, everything was awesome. And it severely diminishes the sting of having a crap meal.
Yeah, I can make up for it.
It can make up for it.
I can go down to Belize and have a real shitty meal, but you know what? It was in a fantastic spot, and it made it that much better.
It makes it better.
I'm on the Caribbean Ocean, and the waves are lapping up, and the white sand, and all this stuff. But
right. And on the flip side of that, I've gone to restaurants and I've gone places and I've consumed a product or been in a business where I love, a meal that would make you think somebody was watching a porn beside me is the noises I'm making while I'm eating.
Right.
But I saw my waiter once.
Yeah.
And I sat there for half the time thirsty. And it's like, dude, I can't focus on how awesome this product is or how awesome this meal is because the service or the people are so bad. So
that's more important sometimes, right?
Right. So I think, like I said, I think the two are married together in a way that a lot of people don't give it credit to. So I think if you have a decent enough space that invites people to be part of the community while they're there, you get there and you feel like you're at home. You feel like it harkens back to something within you that reminds you of something or where you want to be, and then the product takes them there. Man, I think that's a huge.
Yeah.
I
mean, two together, you can't stop, right?
Right.
I mean, but yeah, you got to have. I think the people is even more important.
Right. I'll tell you a place here, and maybe your opinion of them is different than mine, but one place that I've been here that consistently does it awesome. And I love it. I love the people there, and I don't tell them. I've never told them, and maybe I should next time I eat there. But Low Country Fish Camp.
Never been there.
If you go out towards Knightsville, it's like right before. It's right before what's that neighborhood out there?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine used to work here, Wine and Tapas in town. He's now the manager out there, Chris. So I've been meaning to get out there and see him. But
their food, fantastic. Their service, fantastic. Their space, while small. Dude, you go in and it's like the oyster roast style tables and stuff like that. You go in and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm at a little fish camp.
Right.
And then the people there are friendly. The food's fantastic. Always fresh. I mean, it's a good damn meal, man. You go there and you eat and you leave there and you're like, shit, I could have spent a lot more time and a lot more money here. But you just can't wait to go back the next time you're there. And I think if you can do that, regardless of the size of the space or the product or whatever, if you can create that feeling, to when somebody leaves and goes, can't wait to come back.
Right.
Can't wait to drink that again. Can't wait to be here again or do that again. I think that's where it's at.
That is where it's at for sure.
So, you know, I mean, this I like this idea of the craft beer community, and I keep calling it a community for a reason, because I feel like it's like that. You know, my dad drinks Miller. If I were to give him one of those, he'd be like, the hell is this? Get this out of my hands and give me Miller, or give me Bush, or give me whatever.
Yeah. And
when he goes to his old favorites, he goes to the VFW or the Elks or the Moose or the Lions or whatever social club he's going to. He's surrounded by dudes that are sitting there drinking Bush or Miller or Bud or whatever, and that's what they're doing. School. Right, but that's what they don't realize is that same thing of community, that same gift of social interaction and togetherness is being replicated, but in a manner that they don't understand when you go to one of these brew houses or breweries or something like that.
Right.
So, because you don't walk in, at least not in my experience, I don't walk into a brewery and I don't see a 65-year-old guy there watching sports, or sitting there sitting there drinking a beer, just trying to chop it up with the bar.
Yeah, I wish those old guys could kind of realize that. Look, you're supporting the big conglomerates, the big corporations, the InBevs, the Heinekens of the world. And, if you get into craft beer, you're supporting the little guy. The guy that's trying to make a difference, the guy that's trying to line his pocket for his family, whatever.
Right.
Small business is craft beer. And, Homegrown Brew House, that's all we do out there. We don't – if you have sold out, no matter how much of a craft brewer you are, if you've sold out to the big guys, we don't put you on the wall. We're all about small business and supporting the little guy. Because we're a little guy.
Right.
So we want to support those little guys as well. And these people just don't realize that they're lining the pockets of these, 1%ers that don't need the money.
Right.
These small guys, they're the ones that are putting forth the effort, and they have the passion, and they're doing expansive things and great things and unique things that it's just not your watered down beer of yesterday.
Right.
And I mean, those other beers have a place, I guess. Not really, but they do. But America is built on the little guy, and I think that's where the craft beer industry is. The little guy is the one that's making the great products and putting a lot of effort into it, and really working hard. I don't know.
Well, I think the other thing too is that what a lot of guys don't realize too, and that we're certainly in a culture of feedback right now, where now more than ever, people listen to feedback and take it to heart because there's so much riding on it. There's so many people occupying only so little space. So it's a gift and a curse to have Yelp, right? Like, I think it's a gift and a curse that Yelp exists, because you can have somebody that makes a good product and has a good restaurant or has a good brewery or whatever, and somebody has one bad experience and throws a very over-exaggerated review out there, and it can completely diminish something.
Yeah, I hate you.
Right, exactly, and that's the exact point I make. But to go back to what we were talking about with the old guys, is the old guy visits, say, a VFW, right, or he goes to Carolina Ale House, okay, and the lady behind the bar at Carolina Ale House, he says, "Let me try something or other," and he picks a beer, and he drinks it, and he goes, "This isn't for me. It's too sweet." Right? Mm-hmm. And he gives it back to her. Give me Old Faithful. Give me Miller. Okay? That's my dad. Right?
Yeah.
Now, my dad, I take him, we go to Wide Awake. The guy that serves him the beer that he asked for is more than likely going to be the guy that's brewing the beer, or has the ear of the guy that's brewing the beer. So my dad drinks this and goes, "It's pretty good, man, but it's kind of sour, kind of this, kind of that." And that guy can go either, "You know what? You're like the third person that said that to me. You're like the fifth person that said that to me." Or, "Oh, you didn't like that? Well, maybe you should try this. This is a little bit, we do this just a little bit different with this." And there's some of that feedback, that immediate feedback loop that doesn't exist with the bigger guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's a gap, or that's a bridge that people could cross that they just haven't yet. And it makes me think now, going back to what I asked you earlier about what could be next. I think you could be the first craft brewery, or the first middle or low end, fish in the pond that's able to bridge that gap and get to the older guys and say, you have our ear too. If enough people got on there and went to Frothy Beard or High Wire or whatever and went like, hey man, this ain't it, they'd discontinue, or they'd change, or they'd re-release, or they'd do whatever.
Right. Well, speaking of, like I said, I think we're going back to kind of old school a little bit. Almost every brewery, this is a lager from High Wire Brewing Company, but almost every brewery out there right now, locally and Asheville, around the country, are doing lagers right now.
Yeah.
And it's because I think they want to hit that niche of people that want that Bud Light. They want that Coors Light. Right. They want that PBR. They want that whatever. And there's been a huge resurgence in lagers right now.
Right.
And I think that they're trying to hit that niche.
Right.
They say, okay, well, InBev and all these guys are buying out all these craft breweries and the little guys and trying to hit that market. Well, let's hit that market ourselves and not let those guys buy into us. Let's hit it ourselves and appease those Bud Light guys and what have you.
Well, there's two different. I go through two different phases of my year where this time of year, from like this point forward, almost Easter forward, I need something that I can sip and that I can just, not drink all day long, but I don't have to look down and be like, man, I had 8 of these things. I need to sit my ass down somewhere.
Right.
But then I've got the winter months where my diet usually consists of Guinness or something heavy like Guinness. And 8 of those, and you feel like you ate 10 MREs, and you can barely walk. But that's exact. A Guinness is a meal. A lot of people, they'll say, Dale, you drink Guinness? I'm like, yeah, I love Guinness. And they're like, man, I can have like 2 of those, and then I got to waddle out of here. I feel terrible after it. It's so thick, it's so heavy, it's so this, it's so that. And people are like that, and that's fine. But as far as lagers go, or pilsners or anything like that, I need something that I can work on throughout the course of the day, or I can, I'm not going to go out and cut the grass and go in the house and down a Guinness.
Yeah.
Not unless I want to spend the rest of the day in the bathroom.
Right.
I mean, you just can't do it.
And see, I'm kind of the opposite. I think Guinness is just super light, compared to other stouts. And
compared to other
out
stouts
there right now, craft beer stouts. I mean,
but people aren't going out there and finding those because of the way Guinness makes them feel. There's some. And I'm with you. There's some like oatmeal stouts and stuff like that where it's like, dude, I feel like I need a spoon.
Yeah.
Like I need a spoon with this thing, or I got
some hefty stuff.
I gotta chew it and stuff like that, or milk stouts and stuff like that, where it's like,
yeah.
I feel like this weird involuntary need to chew while I'm drinking this beer. It's crazy thick, but
yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is.
For sure. Well, we've talked a lot about craft beer, and you brought out some points earlier about Bitcoin and some investments and things like that. Well, let's talk about investments and betting and sports and those type things. I mean, that's what you guys do on the Fistful of Cash podcast. Do. So let's talk about that a little bit. How'd you get started with that? How did that become your niche in the podcast world?
So realistically, it came about in the fact that I looked for, I realized something that I was good at, which was betting on sports.
Is there betting up in Pittsburgh?
No. So
it's not legal up there?
No. So I started bootleg like everybody else, doing the overseas books, the overseas sports books and stuff like that. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't. Things have gotten a lot better in the last couple of years.
But Jersey in some places, right? They're legal now?
Yep, absolutely. And it is legal in PA now, but it wasn't then. So I started out with that, and it was sort of a collaboration of a couple different things. One, like how you were saying with you and your co-host when you first started, just natural conversations that you were having. Most of the conversations that I was having were based on sports in general, and when people wanted to talk about sports, I tended to be a go-to wealth of information. Me, in one regard, in MMA, boxing, and combat sports. My brother, who's a co-host of the show, in a completely different regard. I don't know many people that know more than he does when it comes to football and basketball. Now, I grew up a basketball player, and for a time, that's all I concerned myself with. But military, wife, life, injuries, I just stopped. I wasn't on it the way I should have been or could have been, how I was in the past. But he on the other hand, man, I'm telling you, you can call him up with a player, ask for a year and ask for a stat. He's got it. It's weirdly Rain Man like. The kid knows, and I say kid, he's a grown man with a family of his own, but the kid knows his shit more than most people I've ever come across in my life. So I looked at what he was doing, I looked at what I was doing, and said, man, we really got a thing here, and I don't know what that looks like, but we've got a thing. So then I realized at the time, I'm like, man, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. Are there sports betting podcasts? There's not many. I'll say a lot, but there's not a lot in the sense that there's conversational podcasts or news podcasts or science podcasts.
Right.
There's a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 tops. I said, okay, so this is a space that's limited. We have something that I think we can bring a value to the table in a limited space. What can we do with this here? I talked to him about it, and I said, hey, if this was something I were to get going, do you think maybe you want to hop in on it? And he was like, well, we'll talk, so on and so forth. What would it look like? We'll hammer out the logistics. So me, on the other hand, I'm a big ideas guy. I love ideas. That's what I do. If you have a business or something like that, I will give you 11 different ideas in 2 minutes on what you can do with it. So I thought, well, this would be a great space for me to talk about fights, because it's what I want to talk about anyway. And since I'm having these conversations with friends and family members, anyway, what would it look like if I just created a space where somebody could just plug into my mind or the thought on what I had on the fight anyway without having to have the conversation? Not that I didn't want to talk to them, but that's what I thought. So like I said, the first couple, I downloaded the Anchor app and just recorded it on my phone and boom, sent it, and that was it. And it just so happened to be in August, this last August, I believe it was, when Henry Cejudo upset Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who was having his 11th title defense of the flyweight belt in the UFC. And Henry Cejudo was a 5-1 underdog. And I did this very detailed breakdown on why I thought Henry Cejudo would win the fight and how he would win the fight. And then if you play my audio with that coupled with the video, I described it perfectly. And I say that not to toot my horn, but to say that sort of was the launch pad that we needed. That people were
I remember you saying August was kind of the precipice or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the word? Precipice? Precipice? I don't know.
Yeah. People were like, oh shit, he might know what he's talking about here.
Right.
So then it was like, there was pressure after that to let's do good on the next event. Like, we have to do well on the next event. I did well on the next event. And then the next one, and then the next one. And then as we started to gain numbers,
so people making money.
Right. College football season was starting up. So I called my brother again. I was like, hey, let's get this going. College football's coming. Nobody knows more than you than this. Let's go. So he's like, all right. So he came on board, and we crushed college football season on top of doing very well on MMA and boxing.
Nice.
So we built a lot of momentum really quickly with being successful. We hit a little bit of a lull. One of the things that we looked at was transparency and integrity. For the longest time, sports handicapping is viewed as a little shady. For a long time, it was called 900 numbers, and a guy will give you a couple picks and this, that, and the other. And it's too shady.
Here's the locks.
Exactly, right. and then there's no accountability for it.
Right.
There's no way to say, hey, I actually did say that. Hey, I didn't say that. But the great thing about a podcast is it builds in accountability. It builds it in. You can go back and you can listen to exactly what I said and when I said it, or exactly what he said and when he said it, and be like, you're full of shit if you're saying you didn't say that. We're accountable in everything. All of our numbers are transparent. I can't hide from it because I say everything. On Saturdays, you log on our Instagram page, all of my picks for the weekend are right there. If I have a losing weekend, it's there for the world to see. Good, bad, and indifferent. And if I had losing weekends, yep. Yeah. But if I had way more winning weekends than losing weekends, absolutely. The Vegas standard for a professional handicapper is 65%. We sit at 65 to 67%.
Nice.
And what I think that sets us apart is we do it in the combat sports realm, which nobody touches because it's notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
So we do what other people don't do, and we do it to a standard that's unheard of. So that's really where it's at. I saw, it's basically just a meshing of something that we had talent for, and there was a space for it, and we just connected it together. and we're doing well. Obviously, always want to do better, but we're doing very well, and I'm happy and I'm thankful for it. Yeah.
So that's your main niche is MMA.
Yes, for sure. I have been entrenched in the fight game, I like to say, since Bloodsport. I watched Bloodsport as a kid and was obsessed with all things fighting from that moment forward, whether it be actual fighting to studio wrestling to collegiate wrestling to whatever it is. If it involves two guys competing against each other in physical combat, there's a good chance that not only do I know who you're talking about, but I can tell you who can win it.
Right. I went back further than that, but yeah. I mean, I was, a huge Kung Fu theater fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Bruce Lee fan.
Absolutely.
I grew up in the 70s. So, I've been in martial arts since I was 15.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's one of the huge things that we went after is just this idea that, what we wanted to do, and I've been saying it more lately, and I wish I would have started from the beginning, but we want to make people better betters. And we don't suggest that people play everything that we play. Because we play everything that we say. So everything that you hear us say on a show or everything that you see me post online, I actually bet it. Yeah. Which is another thing, going back to the accountability thing. It's one thing for you to call me up or me call you and you say, hey, Dale, here's my lock of the night. I'm suggesting a 10-unit bet on Virginia or Texas Tech to beat Virginia. Well, do you feel so confident that you're going to bet your own money on it? I have no idea of knowing that.
I hope not.
But we say the entire and
they should have won last night, by the way.
It's a hell of a game.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a game. One of the things that we did for a while, and we could always go back to it, but people didn't seem to care about it the way we thought they would. We used to post all of our bet slips, so we would bet everything, and then at the end of the episode. So like episodes would come out on a Tuesday or a Friday, and then Saturday morning I'd put all of our actual bet slips up.
Right. So you're transparent.
Right. But people didn't care about that the way they thought we'd care about it.
Yeah.
So I just stopped doing it because it was labor intensive to go in and make individual like memes or GIFs or whatever of each individual bet slip. It's just labor intensive, especially because we're doing like 10, 15 bets a weekend. It's a lot. And then I'm making multiple Instagram posts. Yeah. I mean, I know it's only 30 minutes worth of work, but if you're not going to care about it, then, people didn't seem to appreciate that level of transparency about it because we were just saying it on the show anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, the point is that we bet everything that we say we're playing.
Right.
So we saw that opportunity as well. So we just went after that. But anyway, to go back to what you were talking about. Yeah. I used to rent UFC VHS tapes at a Blockbuster over and over and over again and watch them over and over and over again.
I did too.
I mean, that's I'm not Joe Rogan level encyclopedia when it comes to fights, but dude, I don't want to say I've seen them all. Damn it, I've come pretty freaking close between the old Pancrase days, Pride. Honestly, realistically, what I'm missing now more than anything else is I have not been able to watch ONE FC or Ryzen the way I want to.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the time difference. They're going on at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just can't be up now with a wife and kids and job watching fights for 5 hours between midnight and 5 a.m. just to see what low-level card dude in ONE FC, what Filipino dude's beating up what Thai dude in ONE FC. I just can't keep track of it.
Right.
So a lot of it is just reading other news sources' recaps of the fight. And then once they get a fight in a promotion that people are going to care about and that I can actually find betting lines on, then going back and doing the research.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I love UFC, but... Yeah, originally, I mean, WEC, Uriah Faber.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And then Showtime XC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are my guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, they all got bought out, but UFC is my guy now. But
right.
Those are my two main two.
Yeah. No, the first UFC event I ever attended was UFC on Fuel TV in Pittsburgh, which the main event was Pat Barry versus Czech Congo, which was a great back and forth heavyweight fight. Was not even supposed to be that fight. The main event got switched a bunch of times. I think the main event was supposed to be Nate Marquardt versus somebody else, but that was right when Nate popped for steroids. But anyway, they put Czech Congo and Pat Barry up there together, and Pat Barry had Czech Congo in all types of trouble. He was falling all over the place. It's one of the highlights they show consistently. And Czech Congo caught Pat Barry with an uppercut while Pat Barry was coming in, and Pat Barry did this weird head back thing and fell. So the Czech Congo went from the brink of unconscious to Pat Barry being completely unconscious, and it was one of those things where we were like, "This is the craziest thing ever." And what people didn't see is after the cameras cut, Pat Barry was in the octagon for a long time. Mm-hmm. It took them a long time to get him out of there. He was unconscious it was one of the scarier things I've seen as far as combat sports go.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. But yeah, that was my first live UFC event. But anyway, going back to what you're saying, we got in this space because we do, in my opinion, we do combat sports better than anybody else. Statistically, I think we do it better than anybody else. I have yet to find anybody that does it better. And football-wise, we are as good as any professional that you're going to pay hundreds of dollars a month to get.
Right. And you're number one on iTunes, right?
We are number one on iTunes in MMA betting or combat sports betting.
Right.
The way iTunes algorithm works is MMA is such a weird 3-letter combination that you get a lot of home podcasts in there as well. When you search under MMA, you get a lot of Mama this and Ma'am this and that and the other that sort of eat those spots up. But under sports and recreation, we're can't fake the funk. We don't rank on any sort of measurable that's worth bragging about on sports and rec. But if you go to MMA betting, we are the number one MMA betting podcast on iTunes. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
and that's just since August. I mean, that blows me away.
Well, again,
I've been doing this for a year now, and I'm not even close to your numbers as far as Instagram followers or whatever.
Well, what I think it goes down to, or what I think it goes back to, what we were talking about before, is that I'm number one in a very niche market. That's like saying I'm the toughest guy at Thomas Jefferson High School. That's just Thomas Jefferson High School. There's a whole world out there that you're not the toughest guy in.
Right.
MMA betting is a very unique thing in that it's a landscape that people are just starting to get into. So we're excited about it because people are just starting to get into it because we want to be one of the first ones there. And honestly, we eat up a lot of those numbers if we're talking about numbers because we're the only one there, or some of the only ones there. There's only about, as far as I can tell, people that are measurable or worth measuring. We only have about 100 direct competitors in that MMA.
In the world or nation?
Well, however,
or just podcasts.
Yeah, I don't know how iTunes.
World.
I don't know how iTunes puts that together. So whenever you look up MMA betting, you get a list of top, and we sit at the top of that.
Okay.
So however many are producing at that time, I guess maybe might be how they do it. Right. But like you get into a space like Rogan's, and you look under like professional or talk or whatever the case may be, it's thousands. Yeah. You know what I mean? So. To occupy a space in the top 10, 15, 20, 1,000 in that space would just be unheard of because you're in there with heavyweights.
Yeah.
We are, we're a medium-sized fish in a small pond, right, in the grand scheme of things. So, but we are, for the sake of a number, yes, we are the number one MMA betting podcast in the world.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, like you said, 65%, 66% wins, right?
Yeah, and to toot my own horn here, that number could be a lot higher, but that's a win percentage based on bets. Now, if somebody is a 10-1 underdog, we don't bet that. There's no point in betting that. You can't make it, or a 10-1 favorite rather. There's no point in betting that. You can't make any money on it. There's no point in betting on a Floyd Mayweather fight unless you're betting against him.
Yeah.
So there's no point in betting on a John Jones fight unless you're betting against him.
Fair point.
So
yeah, I was in Vegas for 3 years.
Right.
It's not a good bet.
Right. So you avoid it.
You make $1 or
right.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is you just avoid that. So
yeah, you're trying to pick upsets.
Right. We're hitting 65 to 67% on bets that you can make money on.
Yeah.
Make money on. That's the biggest thing, is I want people to make money. And then, one of the things that we do is that, and it's not a holier than thou thing. I want people to get good at betting, because one, if you take the knowledge that I give you and you make a bet and you win money, I'm directly convinced that money goes back into your household, or at least I hope it does.
Right.
And then in doing so, that helps things out on your end, right? Not that this is like a charitable thing, but it helps things out on your end. But the other thing is that, we have stuff set up and, people, shoot us some money here and there or whatever, but we take that money and we again, try to walk how we talk, and we use that money going forward to do other good things for people. Because like we talked about with the mayoral thing, I don't need the podcast money, and the podcast doesn't make me so much money that I can quit my day job. So it's a side hustle, in the sense that, like, if I were to cut my neighbor's grass and he pays me money to cut his grass, that's how much money I make off a podcast. So I can take that money and go do something good with it.
Yeah.
Or go do something that's not, directly related to, spoiling myself or treating myself or anything like that. Like, we do show sponsorships. Like, we have people that advertise on the show, but we don't ask for monetary stuff for the show. If you are a company and you want to advertise on our show, I ask that you send me some of your product, or you send somebody else some of your product.
Yeah.
So they can use it. Because I don't, it doesn't do me any good. Like, if you, like a CBD beard oil, I have a beard, great, but I don't need CBD beard oil, but I do need CBD. So if you're a CBD company, send me some. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. But I don't need you to pay me for it. Just send me some. Right. Because it's just going to help me out. You know what I mean? So I'm all about just helping other people out with it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But
my biggest part of this podcast is people bring me, beer.
Right.
Like, I have breweries in here. I have Highwire come in. They bring me beer, and that's my payment.
Right.
That's fine. That's enough for me.
Right.
Yeah. And I just enjoy the conversation.
Right. So, all right. Well, this is the thing. I'm gonna get my ass kicked, because I was told I'd be home by 6. So you're right. If we put a pin in this, and we can.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a couple questions here. So, do you think somebody asked me to ask you this? Do you think MMA will come to South Carolina?
Yes.
At any time?
In June, the UFC is coming to Greenville.
Really?
Yes. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson out of Simpsonville, South Carolina, wanted to headline that show, but he recently got knocked out by Anthony Pettis in Anthony Pettis' welterweight debut. Fun fact, if you go to Simpsonville, South Carolina, where if you go to Thompson Mixed Martial Arts, there is a fucking dynamite barbecue place in the same place as Thompson Mixed Martial Arts. Okay. It's called Henry's. Fantastic. Right. Anyway, Thompson wanted to headline that card, but could not. He could not because he got knocked out. So that is yet to have a headliner announced to it.
Henry's Barbecue?
Henry's Barbecue. Yeah, for sure. Simpsonville? Yep.
Okay. So that's coming June?
Yeah.
For sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have more questions? 'Cause I'm just going to go take a leak real quick.
Yeah, the only other question I had was, what do you think about number one, bare knuckle boxing, which has made a resurgence?
Hold on, let me wait a second.
Yeah, we'll pause.
All right, give me a second.
Because I got to pee as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm late.
We're gonna pause, guys. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so people want to know, what do you think about the bare knuckle boxing stuff that's come out? And the other thing that I had down here was, what do you think about when they stand fighters back up?
Ah, gotcha.
Because I have a big contention about that, because they don't sit people down. You got two different styles. You got people that like to stand up.
Right.
And maybe we should talk about the other one first. But you got people that like to stand up. You got people that like to be on the ground. They have two different strengths. So the people on the ground, they get boring. People start booing. The guy stands them up. Well, when you're standing up, people don't start booing and you sit them down.
Right.
So you're emphasizing one person's strength over another strength.
Right.
Right?
So I think what happens is and one of the things that I talk about on our show a lot is it's a matter of changing perspective on what's happening inside the octagon, or inside the cage, or inside the ring, depending on what promotion you're watching. So if you think about it like this, right? If you were to remove the arena remove the referee and remove the cage, and you had two individuals that came across each other in a field, and that were to happen, they are literally fighting to see who is going to be alive and who is going to be dead.
Right.
The only thing that separates that is the controlled environment and the agreed upon rule set and the referee that's there to stop it. So a perfect example that I like to use is Conor McGregor. Okay? So Conor McGregor talked all that shit about Jose Aldo before he fought Jose Aldo, right? And if you think about it like this, if those two guys were to meet on the field of battle, Jose Aldo would be dead right now. Because he ran out there, he acted foolish, he got starched unconscious, and Conor McGregor in that position would have been able to take advantage of his unconscious body, and he would have killed him. Had a referee in that controlled mindset not been there to stop that from happening, if that's what he was inclined to do.
Right.
Okay? On the flip side of that, look at the Conor McGregor-Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. If that same thing were happening, and that same thing, Conor McGregor would be dead because Khabib wrestled him, wore him out, did not take any damage whatsoever, and then choked him to the point of where he had to verbally say, because that's what a tap is. It's a verbal admission that you will kill me or break something if I don't tell you to stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's what that is. They don't say it like that because you can't market it like that, but that's what that is. If you're choking me and I can't breathe, me tapping you is going, I acknowledge that you will kill me if I don't say that you win.
Yeah. That's
what that is. So I've said, and I will, as a person that doesn't wrestle, as a person that loves stand-up fighting, wrestling is by far and away the single most important skill that you can have in a fight. Whether it's a street fight, whether it's a controlled environment fight like an MMA or amateur MMA.
If you get taken down to the ground.
No. Because a wrestler determines where the fight happens. You could be whatever, you pick any stand-up fighter you want in the world. Fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme to Conor McGregor to whoever. If I'm a wrestler and I want you on the ground and I'm a good enough wrestler, guess where this fight's going to take place? It's going to take place on the ground.
Right.
Which is why you see high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys struggle against high-level wrestlers. Because a wrestler will negate the Jiu-Jitsu player's ability to create position. Where Jiu-Jitsu players come into account of where they're very effective is they get a guy that is a good wrestler, but not super great at controlling position, or they take a striker and they put him where he's out of position.
But you don't think there's stand-up guys that can control the fight as well and not get taken down to the ground? They can control the fight in the stand-up?
Yeah, for sure. Chuck Liddell was a perfect example of that. Chuck Liddell had amazing...
Or Kung Lee. I mean, there's been,
I'm not saying that those guys don't exist.
Frank Shamrock. Yeah. I mean...
Stephen Thompson's another one.
Yeah.
If you can be a stand-up guy and control where the fight takes place, you absolutely can. But to answer the question, though, is that how do I feel about guys getting stood up? I think that people need a greater appreciation of what they're seeing. Because when you put it in the context of a life or death situation, or this guy is trying his absolute hardest to stand up and he cannot.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, though, I do not think that just because you're able to take me down and I can't get back up, you shouldn't just be able to just lay on me for 15 fucking minutes and I can't do anything about it. Part of the counter argument is, well, if you don't like it, stand up.
I mean, that's the fight, though, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, as much as I would love to say that there's a valid argument that there's a fight and you should stand them up, the other argument is, if you want up so damn bad, get up. And if you can't, that's not my fault.
Exactly. And that's the point, and I think that's the point this person was making that asked the question is, that's the fight. I mean, I know it's entertainment and they want to entertain the crowd, and the crowd dictates, I think, more than anything who gets stood up or whatever. But it's just, like you said, that's the fight. I mean, I'm a wrestler. I got you down. Now you're on the ground. You get the fuck up if you want to get up.
Yeah.
If not, then we're going to stay on the ground. I'm going to lay on you for 15 minutes, and I'm going to win because I dominated you for the win. But
perfect example of this. A perfect example of that is the Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Abel Trujillo. He took Trujillo down 22 times in one fight. Mm-hmm. A UFC record, 22 times in a fight. Took him down just repeatedly. Every time Abel would stand up, he just threw him back on the ground. That's all he did. For 15 minutes, he just threw him on the ground.
Right.
Abel got up, looked like he hadn't even been in a fight. Looked like he had a hard workout, was breathing real heavy, but just looked like he'd just been tossed around for 15 minutes, and he was. But it's not it that what Khabib's supposed to apologize for that. You know what I mean? So I personally, the sportsman in me wants to say every once in a while you should stand him up, because a guy, given whatever circumstance or position, is able to hold a guy down and he's trying to survive. The realistic fight part of my, whatever my lizard brain says, that's the fight, bro. You want it bad enough, get up.
Right. But here's the contention that this guy was making is, okay, these guys are standing up and they're just circling around each other and they're not engaging, they're not fighting. This guy's saying fight, and they're just standing there running around the ring. Why don't we sit them down and say, okay, fuck you guys. You're not going to stand up and fight. Well, let's put you on the ground and fight.
Right.
So why is it not the reverse? I mean, why do we only stand people up when we don't sit people down?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. But I think and obviously an MMA ref would be a way better source of information on this as far as why they can or can't do that. And I think it just comes
because they're both two different strengths. I mean,
right.
There's a stand up and there's a ground guy.
Right. Well, what I think it would be creating a neutral position with both people on the ground. So the only way to create a neutral position would almost just have to be both guys sit on their ass Indian style and then have them scramble towards each other or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're...
But I mean, you stand somebody up, you give the advantage back to the stand-up guy.
You do, to an extent, but it's also a little bit of the wrestler can just take them right back down again if that's the case. But as far as it being a position of advantage or disadvantage, how do you create a neutral position on the ground that both guys are willing to go? So even if you look at like high school or collegiate wrestling, you take turns being in dominant position. Right. That's why there's escape points. They don't have escape points in UFC or MMA or Bellator or Ryzen or anything like. So the only thing that's out there right now that gives escape points is if you look at like the Eddie Bravo Invitational Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, they do escape they do escape points. So you can actually score points for escapes. So it's about the only thing in a combat setting that actually awards points like that, and they will put people in neutral positions. But as far as if you're a wrestler and you take down a striker and the wrestler's not doing much and you stand and back up, sure, there is an advantage back to the striker. If you've got the reverse to that where the striker's not doing anything, or you have two guys like Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, right? Two power punchers that were terrified of each other. Neither one of them wanted to get near one another. You could say, well, put their ass on the ground then, because they're not doing anything on the feet. How do you create a neutral position on the ground? You'd have to have them both, like I said, just sit on their ass Indian style or sit back to back or something like it. There's no way to determine what would be the neutral position with that. Yeah. So what you have to do is, what we need is we need more referees that are willing to take points away. Especially under the new unified rules, you can score rounds however you want, whether it be 9-8, 9-7, 10-8, 10-7, 10-6, however you want to score them, you can score them. So what you need to do is you need to have referees that aren't afraid to take points. So after my third warning of telling you guys to fucking fight, if you don't, then I'm going to start taking points away. Right. That will in a close fight,
whether you're standing or on the ground.
Exactly. Yeah. And you see this. Sense. You see this a lot too with guys that grab the cage. How many warnings are you going to give a guy?
Oh yeah, a couple weeks ago, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is that if you have me up against the cage and you pick me up and you're going to dump me, and I reach up and I grab it, right, and it prevents your takedown. The referee slaps my hand. Hey, don't grab the top of the cage. Well, guess what, dude? The position's already been stopped. Yeah. The damage is already done. So it doesn't matter whether you're warning me or not. That single takedown could have been the difference in this fight. But we'll never know because it didn't happen. All you did was warn me. It should be, you touch that fucking top thing at all, and it's a point. Mm-hmm. It's a point.
Because right, you know the rules.
You know the rules. You know the rules. You signed the papers. You knew the rules when you got in there.
Yeah.
So to go back to that question, I think why you don't see stand-up fighters getting sat down and things like that is I don't know if there's a neutral position to create. Maybe there could be. And I think it's a perspective switch. I think if people adopt the perspective of what's happening, if you look at it through a potential life and death situation, you got to leave it how it is. Yeah. I mean, they're doing the best they can with what they got.
Right.
So, Bare knuckle. Great fight this last weekend. Jason Knight took on Artem Lobov, which is one of Conor McGregor's boys. I'll say it like this, man. I think as an adult, whether it's fighting, consuming narcotics, prostitution, whatever it is, if you're a consenting adult under your own free will, you should be able to do whatever the hell you want to do if somebody wants to pay you money for it.
Right. But do you think, like Joe Rogan thinks, we should get rid of the gloves because you're not going to punch as hard. You're not going to cause as much damage. You're worried about your hands. You take those 4-ounce gloves off, and it's a little less. It's a little less, right? I'm not going to hit you as hard if I don't have any fucking gloves on. I'm going to break my hand.
I've broken my hand, my right hand, several times. I would never...
Just like football. We put these giant helmets on. If we take these helmets off, are you going to target somebody with your fucking head? Probably not.
You're not, but you're going to have to... The game can't exist in the same capacity. And you see alternatives to that. Like, there is a professional flag football league.
Yeah.
There is. But I will say this. Artem Lobov and Jason Knight fought for 25 minutes with no gloves on. They beat the holy shit out of each other. Yeah. And anybody that doesn't know that can go look up the pictures of it, and there's highlights of it on Instagram. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Now, the flip side of that, you can look at... Did we out-talk your battery?
Yeah, the camera's off.
Okay.
It's about an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can look up some fights that are people, if people are willing to look them up. Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez. BJ Penn versus Joe Stevenson. And try to give you another good one. Joe Lozon versus Jim Miller. Those all had gloves on.
Right. And
they looked like murderers.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and this is the argument against boxing, is that sometimes the gloves can prolong the damage. I've been hit in the head and face innumerable amount of times, and that is because the guy that crossed from me was wearing gloves. If he wasn't wearing gloves, I wouldn't have been hit that much.
Yeah.
But if you are a guy that's willing to subject yourself to that, you could be. Because those guys that did the bare knuckle thing, they still sparred to get ready for it. The only thing that was different was they had gloves on and sparring. So they still went out there. They still did all the prep work. They still took all the headshots going into that. The only difference was on fight night, what they were getting hit with did a lot more damage.
Yeah.
As far as visceral, physical damage. Now, I don't think that they absorbed the same amount of punishment that they would have over a 12-round boxing match. Mm. But the prep, as far as the proof being in the pudding, they still took the same damage going into it. I think whether or not it's a damage argument is a moot point, because what we're seeing scientifically, especially as brain studies and scans and CTE technology gets better and better, or CTE detection technology gets better and better, is that the sparring is where the problems are, not the fight itself. Yeah. And I think in that regard, MMA is the safest thing you can, as far as getting punched in the face, it's the safer option. It's the safer option. But even then, it's not that safe, because depending on what promotion you're fighting in, you can get kicked in the face too.
Right.
And I've been kicked unconscious before.
That hurts.
And
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it hurt or not. But I remember what it was like to wake up from it,
right,
and not know what was going on. And I remember, days after sparring in a gym and going out and throwing up, and it's nothing to joke around with. You see a lot of guys have gotten away from sparring. Guys like Robbie Lawler stopped sparring. Guys like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, they stopped sparring. There's just not a need for it. At a certain point, you reach a level where you're not going to gain anything from getting punched in the face recreationally. Save the punches for fight night.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You see a lot of golfers do it with practice swings, right? You and I go golfing. You and I stand behind the ball, and you take 100 fucking practice swings before you hit the ball. And you probably waste 80 good swings in there in the practice, and then you go up there for swing 101, and you hit a shitty shot.
Good point.
Right? So if you just go up there, get your stance right, and grip it and rip it, you got a better chance of hitting a good shot.
Yeah.
And when you see a pro standing back there taking 50,
wasted
practice
movements.
Right. He's maybe doing 2, 3, or he's getting a waggle, getting his grip right, and then he steps up and he cracks the ball. If I'm a fighter and I've been fighting for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever it is, and I'm comfortable.
You've put in the 10,000 licks or whatever.
Right, yeah. And I've hit the Malcolm Gladwell. I've hit my 10,000 hours. I feel like I'm good at this. I don't need the random new guy at the gym to crack me in the face to get ready for my upcoming fight. I don't need it anymore. Yeah. So I think the damage that we're seeing in fighting is coming in what leads up to the fight, not in the fight itself. As far as bare knuckle boxing goes, those guys, I would love and hope that they're in a position where they don't need to do that financially, to make it like a blood sport style thing. Like, I have to do this in order to feed my family. Do I think that's the case for some of these guys? I think it probably is.
Sure.
But again, they could also, and this isn't to knock people that work at McDonald's, they could also go sign up at McDonald's and work 40, 60 hours a week and make the same amount of money over the course of a month.
Yeah.
Or somebody can come up to you and say, hey, Brian, you want to go fight this dude? I'll give you $5,000 cash tonight. Fuck, how do you say no to that?
You don't.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You don't. You don't.
Maybe not the first time. Maybe the second time you say, nah,
right.
I'm not doing that again.
But you don't. You say, all right, yeah, for sure. Because money talks on stuff like that. And you get guys that, if you're fighting in bare knuckle boxing championships or bare knuckle fighting championships or whatever the case, whatever they're calling themselves this month, it's because as a fighter, nobody else is offering you money.
Right.
Because, Bellator signs guys that without, like, you can turn on the Paramount Network next weekend and watch a guy that has one professional MMA fight, and he's fighting on Bellator for $2,500.
Right.
So if you can't get a fight with them, you're going to bare knuckle. You're going to tough guy competitions, or you look at like the Barstool Sports thing, the Rough and Rowdies, where you're getting paid $500 a fight and stuff like that. But dude, if I got bills to pay, I'll fight somebody in a parking lot tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you look at these guys that are chasing glory. Jason Knight's got 2 kids, got cut from the UFC. You hear the guy talk, not bashing on him, doesn't sound like the smartest dude in the world. If he doesn't want to go out there and swing a hammer or dig holes or put roof on, what the hell else is he going to do? He says, well, shit, I got 10,000 hours worth of experience in something. I can make some fucking money. And these people are going to pay me $15,000 to go out here and get punched in the face and maybe punch this other dude in the face. And if I beat him up, hell, in 6 months, they might give me another $15,000. How the hell do you expect a guy to say no to that?
Yeah.
And the promoter knows that. He knows that.
Yeah.
So he's going to offer it. And I know that's grim and that's a sad note to end this on, but that's the bare knuckle boxing. Why people don't like it, it is as stark a reality as you're going to see when it comes to 2 guys, what they're willing to do for money. Mm-hmm. And that's the nuts and bolts of it, man.
That's it.
But
so here's the last question I'll ask you.
Yeah, man.
Bellator or UFC? What do you prefer?
So I prefer UFC production value wise. I prefer UFC as far as talent goes. I prefer Bellator because it's a free market and the guys can make as much money as they want.
Right. I agree.
If you are a brand and you are a person and you understand your self-worth, Bellator is the place to be. I
think Bellator is more entertaining, to be honest.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. It just depends. There's a lot of parity in the talent level though, which sometimes can be entertaining. It can be more entertaining. But if I'm a guy and I go and I fight for the UFC, the way the UFC's pay structure is set up, they can say it's your first fight, you'll make 10 to show, 10 to win. And because it's your first 5 fights, your Reebok check is $2,500 flat, which is what it is.
Yeah.
So you're making $2,500 for me. You're making 10 to show up, so it's a potential $1,250 payday. If you win, it becomes $2,250. After 10% goes to your team, management, everything else. If you lost, you're probably walking out there with about $7,000. So is that worth it when I can go to Bellator? Like, we have a guy that reached out to us recently. He's a professional fighter in Colorado. He's interested in us sponsoring him. To get our logo on his shorts on fight night is $250. Well, his shorts, and you've seen Bellator shorts, are going to have 7 different logos on them.
Yeah.
If I want to be on his banner behind him and be sizable enough for people to read, we're looking at least $1,000. If I want his whole fucking banner, I'm going to pay him $7,000. So he can make more off me doing that, and then make $250 off of every ancillary sponsor that he can fit on his shorts, and his Bellator check. He can walk out of there with guaranteed 20. Whereas if UFC, he's walking out there with 7,500.
Yeah.
So as far as you being an enterprise and you being a commodity and you realizing what you're worth, Bellator all day.
More money, but you're not fighting the best in the world.
You're not fighting the best in the world, but there's more money involved in it, and you can control your brand, which is why, as much as I dislike Conor McGregor, I admire the fact that he realized very early on that he is a brand.
Yeah.
And you will pay me for my brand.
Yeah.
If you want my name attached to something, you'll pay me for it. And if he never fights another day, I commend him in what he was able to do in the time he was able to do it, on top of the fact that he says he won't come back unless the UFC gives him shares in the company. Fuck yeah, man, go for it. Yeah. Shoot your shot.
Businessman. Shoot
your shot. Because I tell you right now, if he comes back, whatever fight he takes, it's going to do 1 million plus pay-per-view buys. It's going to make them $1 billion. He's going to get paid $100 million. And he said, you know what, dude, I'm worth. If you're making $1 billion and I'm making 100, you should be paying me 250 or 300 million.
Yeah.
Why not? And you can do that by giving me steak.
100%.
So I'm all for it. I like Bellator. I like UFC. I follow UFC better or more in the sense that I watch each and every fight I can live.
Yeah, it's just more on the forefront.
It's more on the forefront, and there's better accessibility to it. But I do go back and I watch every Bellator fight that I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
So, because what happens is those Bellator guys that are on the undercard in a year from now, they're going to be fighting on the main card. There's going to be odds for them, and then I want somebody like you or me or somebody that listens to my show in New Jersey or wherever, I want them to be able to make money off of it.
Right.
Like we called Henry Corrales versus Aaron Pico. Henry Corrales was a plus 345 underdog. But I've been watching Henry Corrales for the last 5 years and thought if he can get his hands on Aaron Pico, he's going to fucking sleep him. And Aaron Pico decided he wanted to stand there and do half Muay Thai clinch, and they were just going to throw right hands at each other until somebody went to sleep. Well, guess what? The first right hand that Henry Corrales landed, Aaron Pico went to sleep.
Yeah.
But not watching fights 5 years prior to that, seeing Henry Corrales do that to people, you're more inclined to go, no money to be made on this fight, and you leave. But you listen to our show, you watch that, you walked away that night. If you were $100 better, you walked out of there with $445 in your pocket.
Right.
Hard to. That's the reason why we watch shit like that.
Good win.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Dude, this was a blast. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. I know you got to get out of here, and I think we should end on what you just said. Shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot, man. And I was going to talk to you about it too, but I think we need to do more. I think we got some more stuff in the pocket too that we can.
Yeah.
We can work on for sure.
100%.
All right, cool.
Yeah. All right, Dale.
All right,
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man.
It was good seeing you.
Yeah, you too.
And we'll talk to you soon, guys.
Long time coming, man.